I'm telling you, man, could you imagine having all the power to just snap your fingers and just wipe out all life?
I couldn't imagine it.
Well, I bet I could, but I can't snap my fingers. Hey guys, welcome back to Comic Universe, the only nerd-centric thing you need in your life. Once again here at Panel to Panel, and Dubs, my man, you know, a certain movie's coming out in about 2 weeks, and I figured, you know, we better prepare for it. And what book better than to use as an example of the awesomeness that is Thanos than the Infinity Gauntlet, which is like the big Marvel. Whenever you think Thanos, you think of this comic.
Absolutely.
Or you think big, great Marvel events, you think of this.
If you think big time events, it's either one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, next to Infinity Crisis, so.
Yeah. So, Crisis on
Infinite Earth.
That's the big one for DC. I would argue that this is the big one for Marvel.
Yeah, I think they're 1 and 2.
Yeah. So, this comic, what can you actually say about this book that hasn't been said already, other than, yeah. But for those who have not read it, the story is pretty straightforward. Thanos has acquired all the gems and placed them upon the Infinity Gauntlet, and with one snap of his fingers, he has wiped out all life. I mean, half-life.
Half of the life.
Half of the life of the universe to beseech his beloved Lady Death, because Thanos needed a case of the not gays.
Right, essentially.
Yeah.
So those who are not like in the know, if you're just kind of all you know is MCU, if you will, the movies. Death actually has a embodiment. She's an actual being, if you will.
That Thanos is in love with.
Yeah, and he absolutely loves her, and he essentially just wants to please her. And since her job and her aura and everything about her is death, he figures by killing half of the universe, half of all existence, that will be enough to win her love.
And it was, in fact, it was Death's idea. Is like, if you kill half the life of the universe, I'll bang you.
Basically, and then lo and behold, there, you know, he's not in it, but we all know where your boy over here shows up and wins her heart eventually. But that's neither here nor there. But essentially, so yeah, he gets the stones, he gets the gauntlet, and he does some ish that is just unreal. Like, even in today's, like, how much more advanced we've come in the drawings of comics and the illustration and everything. Some of the scenes in this book, man.
Yeah. This was the height of George Perez's artwork, in my opinion, because what he does best is, you know, do an entire ensemble cast on one page and make it amazing. There are just some great pages in here of all the characters just standing around talking, and it looks great.
Yeah.
And even better when they're all fighting Thanos. And this is what I feel like events should be. Giant scaled stories with everyone coming together to fight one common evil. Not each other.
Sometimes it's okay, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But one enemy here. And yeah. This comic is like the rule book on how Marvel should do events.
Sure, I would agree. You know, I even mentioned this to you. This book is not perfect, but it's perfect. It's like everything you want in just epic space madness, if you will. Again, some of the way when the characters all get together, and some of the inventive ways they kill them off, if you will, get rid of them. It's just, we're talking glass shield, around the head to suffocate and kill. We're talking Lego blocks basically turned into toys. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
And my boy Wolverine's, his bones are turned into rubber. I mean, come on. This is fantastic stuff we're working with. And you gotta be a complete if you will, badass, if you have essentially the devil following you around as your lackey.
Yeah, if you have the devil as your yes man.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It is, you're freaking top of the litter, if you will. And, Zilla, there's some scenes, man, in this just little panels. That's like the one I showed you, the first one, with Silver Surfer just laid out on the couch, and he just looks like he's sitting there talking to his psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh my, the day that I have had.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw my parents have sex once,
and it ruined me and scarred me
and
for
then
life.
Daddy didn't take me to the circus then after, and then he told me I was adopted.
And either I was hugged too much as a kid or not enough. You know, it's hysterical. Just in little pieces of artwork tells so much of the story. Like, we're joking around here, but you clearly know, like, after his time in Soul World, and he's just sitting there on the couch, it's just like, you know, if Silver Surfer's curled up on your couch, you know something has happened.
Yeah.
You know, something big time has just happened.
I actually own the comic, the Silver Surfer number 50. That's the prequel.
Awesome.
The prequel to this.
That is fantastic. That's awesome. But yeah, man, there's like that, and then again, I mean, clearly the fight scenes, and when, you know, he gets rid of his brother's mouth.
Yeah.
You know, we joked around about that too, but seriously, just it kind of brings you back to when they did it to Neo in the Matrix. It's like that. Marvel did it first. But man, I just absolutely love. I mean, I've read this probably a total of 5.5 times because this time I just skimmed through it. But man, it is amazing. I really don't have anything bad to say about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. This comic, even though a lot of life is just wiped out snap of a finger, and it's funny too when we talk about paneling, is like that big moment of where he just snaps the finger. It's just, it's one little box at the corner of a page.
Yeah.
And it's so like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, it's like a little portion page, but it's literally the whole page, if you will. Like, it takes up, like, it's what you remember from the panels, if you will.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like, and you clearly see how powerful the gems are, and it makes you wonder, you know, what from this book is going to translate over to the big screen. Like, if they're going to actually follow some of the things that has happened, like some of the ways, again, the heroes are taken out. Will he do that to some of them, you know?
Yeah. The other thing is that everyone feels like they get a spotlight. Everyone feels like they get, you know, a really cool spotlight, but the main player here is Thanos and Adam Warlock.
Space Jesus.
Yeah. Essentially Space Jesus.
Yeah.
Who, if you think that it, you know, and again, this Jim Starlin was before a lot of the stuff with Guardians of the Galaxy and Annihilation and everything in like the early 2000s. With Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. Jim Starlin was the guy who really did a lot of the Marvel cosmic stuff and wrote the Bible on that.
Basically, yeah.
And in here it's no different, where it's Adam Warlock is the main character we really focus on. Even though, yeah, there are other Marvel characters who show up in here, they're more like cannon fodder. And it's so like disheartening if you're imagine reading this comic and being like, how are they going to get out of this? Like, oh my god, did I just watch, you know...
everybody, basically. You know, all the big major powerhouses that you can think of, you know, they're just there and they're like that.
Yeah. The other thing is that while this is going on, Earth is getting more and more, you know, screwed.
Hammered, yeah, basically.
Yeah. First off, nice. Half the population gone, half the superheroes gone, and when Thanos throws a temper tantrum, he accidentally knocks, of course he was going to do that anyway, but he knocks Earth off of its orbit and sends it floating there, and also floating out of orbit, and also this massive earthquake that devastates everything. And now on top of that, you had Annihilus and his army show up.
Yeah, right? Just if things couldn't get any worse, literally. It's like a scene in a movie. You could be like, oh man, this is the worst. This is it, man. We're done. It couldn't get any worse. And then, whoop, portal, and everyone's in. And you're just like, oh, why did you have to open your big fat mouth?
Yeah.
You know?
There's even a great scene in here where, like, Moon Knight is looking at the devastation of, like, New York is in flames.
Right.
And he's just
even
like,
the ocean is on fire in the scene. And he's just like...
And Japan, there's one big page of Thor flying over the Atlantic Ocean. He's like, hey, tell Cap, Japan's gone.
Yeah, he's like, it's completely gone. There's nothing left.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but back to that Moon Knight, you just see it in the artwork again, on his face. You know, it's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? He's like, what am I going to do? I can't do anything to help. You know, and it just shows the peril that the world is in and the peril that all our heroes are in. And it's not just because it's Moon Knight and he doesn't have superpowers per se, you know, in comparison to, like, you know, Hulk and things like that. But, you know, even if it was Hulk in that situation, he would just been like, dude, what could I have done? I couldn't clap all this air out, you know, all the fire out. It was just absolutely, again, man, it's just, whether you're reading it, skimming through it, I mean, the epicness of this story, I don't know if that's a word, but the epicness of this story clearly comes through. And clearly we're getting it finally in some iteration into film. And I'm telling you guys, if you've never read this, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you're only a fan of the movies, I urge you to go get this before, because it'll only make the movie that much better for you, I promise.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, we also get the awesomeness that is Thanos fighting the cosmic beings.
All of them.
And they're literally like...
almost all of them.
Almost all of them, because Tribunal's like, yeah, it don't bother me.
Yeah.
Outskis. And then we have, like, the Celestials throwing planets at Thanos. Inhabited planets, mind you. So, and yeah, it's astonishing. Like, it's mind-boggling at some points where you're seeing all of this happen in front of you, and you're like, what is going to stop him?
Yeah, exactly. And you just sit there like, okay, well, Thor didn't do anything, Hulk didn't do anything, Spider-Man didn't do anything, oh, Galactus didn't do anything, Ego didn't do anything, you know, even though Ego signed it, but you know what I mean, like, going through the list, the Stranger didn't do anything, and just all of a sudden, what else is there to do? Like, where can it go? And then, again, not to bring it back to the movie, it's like, well, the out that they get through in the book, I just can't see that being the out in the movie, so I don't know what's going to happen.
So the ending, and I guess we can spoil this, because...
Major spoiler alert, but still, if you've never read it, go get it, read it, before we spoil anything.
Yeah.
Even after, it's worth it. I promise. I promise.
So the major thing of this is that Thanos wants to be beaten. That's the big thing, is that Thanos is so powerful, he wants to be beaten because he knows he's not worthy of this power.
Yeah.
And even though he defeats Eternity, he becomes the universe. And at that point, you're like, what now? But then in comes Nebula, snags the gauntlet off of his hand, puts it on, and for the next 2 issues, it's her as the main enemy.
Correct.
And...
makes us wonder, you know, that if, like you said, that maybe they'll go that route.
It could be the route that, you know, maybe Nebula, because she's not really good. She's more like, she's just not attacking Gamora anymore. So it could be that, you know, after all this, she somehow gets the gauntlet at the end of the movie and is like, boom.
Right? No, it's definitely a possibility. Again, you know, my 2 cents is even though it's traditional and it makes me happy in that regard, I also feel that it's not as... This movie's been leading up for 10 years. It's much different when you got 6 issues to work with, like in the comic, and it builds up to that. You're like, okay, I can take that. I can accept it. Yeah. But it's a difference when we've been waiting 10 years to get this, and I think that just might be a little too lackluster if it's... she's the one that pulls it off, but we never know. I mean, even if it was Gamora that pulled it off, I still think it's a little lackluster.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The other thing is that there's some nice little character moments in here, like Hulk and Wolverine just chill out on the roof of the...
My favorite and your favorite, just hanging out, chilling on the rooftop, bonding.
And just be like, you know what? We're cool.
Yeah, you know, basically, just to kind of give you guys who haven't read it, the scene is you know, Hulk is out on top, you know, on the roof, and he's just kind of stressed of everything that's going on, essentially. You know, like, this is this power beyond power.
He's not even like that. He's just like, I'm sick of you guys.
Yeah, he's like, I doesn't want to deal with it. Well, yeah, that too. But he's kind of, it's almost sulking. I guess, not sulking, but really. And Wolverine's like, I'm just going up to grab a smoke and some fresh air. And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you or disturb you. And, you know, Hulk opens up to him, and he's like, you know, we've had some scuffles, man. We've gone to war, you and I. And, you know, when doing that, when you fight somebody so much, you get to know them. You get to really understand them. And he goes, I like you, short man. And Wolverine's like, why is that? And he's like, because we're basically both monsters in our own way. Yeah. And it's like so great. It's great.
Yeah, and Logan's like, you're right. Yeah. And I love the scene, like, building up to this, like, oh, I saw, like, Adam goes to look, he's like, I'm looking for Wolverine, I need to talk to him real quick. He's like, he went up to the roof, oh no, Hulk's up on the roof, they're gonna kill each other. Yeah. And that's not what happened.
But again, and then it's funny because, again, when I first read this, again, I've read it like 5 times, but it was at least 8 to 10 years ago, to be honest with you. I'm sure, something like that. It's been a while since I've read it, and just skimming through it again, I forget the amount of characters that are in this book. Yeah, there's like Cloak, even though he has a major scene in the book, I had forgotten. So even if you've never, or you haven't read in a while, maybe it's due to kind of come back and give it a shot. Cause,
especially now with, Infinity War.
Because there's so many surprising moments. You're like, oh yeah, that happened. I forgot this scene was even here. And let me tell you, probably one of the coolest deaths do have to go to Cloak. And we're going to spoil that one for you. So basically, if you don't know, Cloak's got kind of his internal...
The Dark Dimension.
Dark Dimension is almost like a teleport, if you will. Well, it is. And basically, they're trying to boot Thanos into the Dark Dimension. And essentially, once he's booted inside of Cloak, the next panel over, you just see Cloak like, no! And then the next panel is, boom! And he just...
And Thanos is like, who's next?
Right? So it literally just explodes him from the inside out, and it's just like, what the... and I'm just like, oh man, I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
But it's fucking great. I love it.
This comic is, like I said, what a lot of events should really base themselves on. Like this is, if you were to do like top 10 like Marvel events, this would be in very high on that list.
I honestly would say it's the number one when I think of, like you said in the beginning of the video, when you think of Marvel and their biggest events, and it could also be because how in pop culture it's the big event now coming up, that this is the one. You have your Secret Wars and your other, many other ones, but this one, man, it was great.
Yeah.
But
the other thing I think people forget is that it's only the hero. A lot of the heroes deal with the stuff on Earth and they're gathering their forces, and the main fight with Thanos isn't until issue 4, and even then, it's like it shows why it took so long because Thanos just houses everybody.
Yeah, it was just. Man, I mean, nobody stands a chance to him. And again, if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to lose, essentially, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So and then again, even if when his daughter or when Nebula grabs the gauntlet, you're still even like, okay, well now she has the power. How's all this who's gonna stop her now? And it turns out to be something basic. Well, it's like, why didn't they just do that to begin with, type of thing. But really, I mean, I can't fathom how this happens. What happens in the movie? I just can't. I don't know what's going to happen.
So there's not much else we could say other than get this book. If you were, if you want to,
it's definitely a pull. Get it.
It's definitely a pull. Or you could probably get it in trade for. That's probably better off for you. I don't know. I'd imagine the single issues are probably, through the roof right now because of the movie.
Yeah, I would assume so. But I mean, if you're a hunter and a collector, I would definitely recommend doing that. But again, in trade, it's just as good. I mean, the story's the same either which way you get it, to be honest with you.
So, yeah, pick up this book. It's
5 out of 5 for me, to be honest with you.
5 out of 5 for me, too. And, so next week, we're going to keep on in panel to panel with more stuff counting down to infinity with Infinity.
Just Infinity.
Yeah, just Infinity.
Guys, and let us know what you guys thought of this. If you've watched or if you've read it, if you're planning on getting it, what do you guys think about the movie that's coming up? How do you think it's going to end? Who do you think we're not, that we don't know yet? I mean, I know there's been some talks of Silver Surfer possibly being in the movie, and fingers crossed that does happen. Like, what's going to take down Thanos? Or does the movie just, I think it's going to pull a Matrix on us. I think it's going to end but continue in. I know they're saying he's not the main villain in the next one, but I think they're going to both be connected, the two of them. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, guys, let us know again what you thought, and
once again, see you once more in the universe.